There are three parts of the roundtable today. The first part asks the question, what causes pandemics to occur in the first place? We have experts to help us with that. Let's now go to Bernstein. He's the interim director of the Harvard Sea Change and leader of the scientific task force Preventing Pandemics at the Source initiative to help us answer this question. Dr. Bernstein, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Stephen, for the opportunity to speak with you all today. I'm going to briefly discuss what we've learned about the origins of pandemics like COVID-19. I'm going to take a moment here to share my slides. So the question before us is, what causes a pandemic? And I think it's important to be clear about what I'm talking about when I'm talking about a pandemic. And the paradigm that we're living through of COVID-19 is what's on my mind. There are many infections that can cause pandemics. There are cholera pandemics. There are pandemics of antimicrobial resistant organisms. But when it comes to societal upheaval and risks to human life, and importantly, to the welfare of nature, the emergence of a new virus like SARS-CoV-2 is what is of greatest concern. We know without a doubt that the root cause of pandemics like this result from viruses that reflect our changing relationship with other life forms on Earth. As you'll hear much more about from my fellow speakers, the rates of emerging infections are rising in recent decades, and that comes as little surprise. The figures I show here show the results of a growing human population that places growing demands upon our planet and its life forms. As we dismantle the biosphere, we live, as my friend David Mendel has said, on a technological limb of the tree of life. We replace nature with our own inventions. These inventions have been enormously beneficial to us, but have left the rest of life on Earth in dire straits. This summer, a group of leading scientists and I got together to look at the science that addresses what we know about pandemics, disease emergence, and importantly, what we can do about it. We put out a report in August, which I will refer you to, that goes into greater detail about what we know, but it is very clear from scientific research that at the core of pandemic risks, we see land use changes, which mostly in today's world is deforestation, particularly in the tropics, from how we handle livestock for various purposes, and increasingly how we farm wild animals for our own use. And also in the harvesting, consumption, and trade of wild animals. It's these three places where we see risks of disease emergence from what is called the spillover of pathogens from animals, typically wild animals, into people. So why is the combination of our changing relationship with life on Earth and those three driving forces such a risk for spillover? To get at that, you have to understand that we swim in a common germ pool with all animals. So if you look at the pathogens of people, you'll be looking at the first cousins or even siblings of our own diseases. HIV is a very good example. HIV appeared in people because it spilled over from non-human primates into people. But whether you're talking about malaria or tuberculosis or rotavirus, influenza, if these diseases aren't directly transmissible today from animals to people, not so long ago, they were in another animal and transferred into people at some point. When I describe the root cause of pandemic risk as an issue of relationship between people and animals, many would reply saying, well, isn't pandemic risk really about what you see here, which is global air travel or shipping or growing human population in cities? And the answer is, those are certainly factors in the spread of pathogens, but the root cause is the movement of a pathogen from animal to a person. At the same time, we will never address pandemic risk through curtailing people's travel or trying to monitor people when they do travel or ship goods. And we're certainly not going to address the risk by depopulating cities. And so if you think, as our task force found, about what is perhaps the wisest investment when it comes to addressing pandemic risk, it really does get at this relationship with nature. And COVID-19 has left us at an absolutely critical point. Right now, the vast majority of dialogue on addressing pandemic risk focuses on building more onto the technological limb of the tree of life. Massive investments in vaccines, massive investment in drugs, diagnostic tests, health systems. These are all obviously critical, and we need to do much more than we're doing now to make sure that vaccines in particular are available to people living in low and middle income countries and in poor communities and wealthier ones. But COVID-19 is our case in point. We had a vaccine available in record time after the genome of this virus is sequenced. And here we are over a year, well over a year later, and most of the world has no access to it. So we cannot vaccinate our way out of pandemic risk, but we can take steps to prevent spillover that can give us far more that we can ever attain through post-spillover interventions like drugs, vaccines, and tests. A prime example is preventing deforestation, as you'll hear more about. When you prevent deforestation, you not only can curtail spillover risk, you can reduce greenhouse gas emissions that drive climate change, you can protect indigenous people's rights, you can conserve wildlife, and a host of other benefits. The benefits that come with preventing spillover provide for an offer that's simply too good to refuse. We must ultimately choose to protect nature, not merely for the prevention of pandemics, although that's a good reason. The reason we must, as Pope Francis's encyclical made so clear, is that we really have no choice when it comes to saving the living world, for we have to do so if we're to save ourselves. And with that, I will turn it back to Stephen. Thank you.